Well, I guess it's true. Love is dead. Until it's brought back to life by a wish, a lightning storm, and a high schooler who's just about to enter her goth phase.
Really hope this goth phase ends soon.
And today we have Lisa Frankenstein, the latest divisive movie of 2024 that all the Corpse Bride stands out there are going to absolutely adore, and all the, OG Frankenstein cinephiles are probably going to not enjoy. I've dabbled into the reviews on this one and it's extremely mixed. I got very lucky. Regal, thank you. Sometimes you make poopy in the bed. Sometimes you give us really good mystery films. That's right, this was a Mystery Movie Monday for Regal Cinemas. Those are basically like $5 Monday night, one showing only, and all you know is that it's a early release of a film that has not come out yet, and that could vary, because sometimes it's like usually 10, 12 days out. It could be up to, in the case of when I reviewed Founders Day, we saw that one a month early. In this case, this was actually not too far off. We saw this on, I think it was February 5th, and it comes out technically on the 9th, so it's early in the sense that, yeah, it's like several days early. If you don't know, Lisa Frankenstein is actually directed by Zelda Williams. And if you think, why does that name sound familiar? This is the wonderful daughter of Robin and Marsha Williams. So, as we all know, Robin Williams is unfortunately no longer with us, but I really love seeing that his daughter is still actively involved in cinema, clearly has a reverence for it, she's still acting, and now, aside from some music videos and short films and short TV movies and series, this is technically her first full-length feature film, and they use that as part of the marketing as well. Props and bravo to her. I would love to keep seeing this wonderful human being make more films. In terms of star power, I didn't even realize this until after I watched the movie. So it stars Katherine Newton, who I didn't directly cover her, although she was the one they recast for the third Ant-Man movie. And also, it's unfortunate because she's great, but Quantumania certainly ain't. So, aside from that, she's known for her role in Big Little Lies. But Katherine Newton is our titular Lydia Dietz from Beetlejuice wannabe star. And of course, you have a man who was, I kind of grew up with him incidentally, part of my childhood, but you have one of the two Sprouses. You have Cole Sprouse, most known, obviously, if you're part of my generation growing up, from The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, or, Sweet Life on Deck, just to name two shows. Obviously, he's been in more programs. He was in Big Daddy, and his character's name was Julian Frankenstein McGrath. So, oh, the irony, how we've come full circle. She plays an evil woman in this movie, but I gotta give a shout out. Carla Gugino, I hope I'm saying that right. Do your research, asshole. I love this woman. I'm a huge Mike Flanagan stan, the Flaniverse, or whatever the hell we're calling it these days. Whether it be The Haunting of Hill House, I don't know why I went pirate all of a sudden, or Midnight Mass, or the Fall of the House of Usher. Always a delight. So yeah, Lisa Frankenstein, I almost said Zelda Frankenstein. Lisa Frankenstein, I saw the trailers for this and it looked fun, quirky, dark. I almost thought it was going to be R. I almost kind of wish it was R. But you know what? For being PG-13, there's still enough implied violence and gore and fun shenanigans and exploits that this was one of the PG-13s, so they took advantage of their rating and with some solid direction made it fun, and the implied violence was good. It's a girl that just, she's so different, but disconnected from the rest of her social groups and cliques in high school, and she's more into the morbidity of death and all that, hangs in the cemetery, etchings of the gravestones, and then after a bad experience at a party, she goes to the cemetery and she's like, I wish I was there, I wish I was together with you, and while she meant I wish I was dead in the ground with you, the wish somehow through cosmic Deus Ex Machina, a storm rolls into town, lightning strikes, as in ye old Frankenstein tale, and the person that was in the grave is brought back to life, and he happens to also be a hopeless romantic. You know what? This was a really good time. We'll start as always with the positives and whatnot, right? It is a fun and funny movie, but there's already a bunch of comparisons being made online, but what I got from my own perspective was 80s Pastel meets 80s Gothic, and just kind of the clash of those two, and it's just fun because when she starts coming into her own and and her outfits start changing and her temperament and style, then she kind of sticks out like a sword, like a wrought iron gate in a white picket fence community, that kind of deal. But it's a fun aesthetic that I think visually does the film many favors. I was gonna say it's kind of like Stranger Things or like Beetlejuice, but really it's just like the film is its own thing while paying obvious reverence to films of similar ilk. Just in terms of, 80s and 90s, like similar, like Edward Scissorhands, that type of deal. Like it just has that similar vibe. But cool, because people clearly like that vibe. I am fond of it. And it's cool to see that we're still making films that follow suit. Great acting and performances, honestly. Kathryn Newton kills it. I mean, all the main leads kill it in their roles. I don't think there's a single bad performance turned in this whole movie. The likable characters are likable, the hateable ones are hateable, and everybody really kind of gives it their all for this film. I'm sure they all had fun making it. I didn't really feel like anybody was phoning it in. Everybody played their character well and gave us very engaging performances. Especially considering the fact that literally Cole Sprouse' character doesn't speak. He for reasons that aren't, aside from the fact that he's a reanimated corpse, so I guess that probably has something to do with it. All he can do is just grunt and do herky-jerky movements. It's not until the end of the film that he actually has any lines, but similar to Joel Kinnaman's character in Silent Night, I think it's a testament of acting without having to have dialogue, if in your body language and your facial expressions, your eyes, and your even grunts in this case, how you can convey so much character and emotion through all that. It's a testament to Cole Sprouse's acting ability. So Kathryn Newton, Cole Sprouse, they killed it. Great two leads that had some eventual adorkable chemistry. I always say this every single time I address the idea of comedy in a film, but yes, it always stands. Comedy is very subjective, but in this reviewer's humble opinion, the comedy in this film was actually really good. 80 to 85% of the comedy in this film works very well. It lands heavily in part due to the great dry delivery from its characters. These lines aren't delivered as if to be comedic, but the way that they come off, the writing in this movie is very funny. And then the funny writing is only just boosted by the way that the actor or actress or whoever delivers said line. It's great. It was a very dark, morbid, and just very funny, often dry film. And the makeup and practical effects. Obviously her makeup, our main character's makeup, and the outfits that she wears and the makeup that she has, but of course with our Cole Sprouse Frankenstein here, the journey that he goes on as he becomes more and more back to being a human, just the makeup effects on him and his body, I assume there's prosthetics, makeup for the eyes, the whole shebang and bang, the practical effects, even when limbs or pieces of body are involved playfully in his cobbling together. It looks good. Now there are some things I will warn you about. The biggest detraction for me in this film took a while for me to get into it. The film's first act is its worst. It's not bad, but the pacing is just kind of weird and stilted, and it's kind of like our main character. You're not sure how to feel about her at first, and then as the film progresses and we get to act 2 and 3, her character really expands, evolves, comes into her own, and the movie got better and better, funnier, more entertaining, more interesting. So I will warn you, similar to the first 5 minutes of Babylon, you're gonna a little different, but just copium, just let it roll, let it go, let it ride, and then eventually you're in for a great hell of a time. I get that it plays into the comedy and kind of just the world we're going for, because it's one of those worlds where it's kind of like when I reviewed Bottoms last year. Aspects of these characters in this world are not realistic. Most of these characters are just very they act like doofuses, is the thing. Most people are inept and just act like silly billies, little silly bananas, doofuses, and it's just part of the whole thing. It's our main character, she's trying to figure out life, and everybody around her seems crazy and seems to be the only one that has the capacity for emotional depth. And it's just one of those movies, everybody around, and I get it's meant to be that way, so it's not a huge detraction, but it does get to a point where you're okay, well, I'm my immersion's broken a little bit because everybody is playing up these characters as idiots just so much now. The narrative mostly tracks, but as much as I enjoyed the film, I didn't love the film, and I didn't love the overall narrative. Our protagonist, she goes on a journey for sure, and I don't know, she's transformed a little bit by the end of it, but does she really have a character arc per se. I mean, sure, in the sense of like how Juliet does in Romeo and Juliet, but like, I don't know, there's no major transformation here. It's just kind of a story, you know, ramps up to a boiling point and then the climax unfolds. And it does so in a way that, you know, makes sense for the most part. I enjoyed the story, but I didn't love how the narrative went. There is a decent amount of slapstick comedy in this. It's fine. I don't love when slapstick is overused, so it is a minor detraction for me, I guess, but that's kind of more personal bias at that point. But it is a little bit like it's not perfect, but if you turn off your brain, you know, just kind of let yourself have fun and don't think too much about the minutia or the rules of how this is working, suspension of disbelief, make sure it's turned a little higher than normal, and, you know, just enjoy the ride, the narrative, accept the science fiction premises that are posited by our director here, and you're in for a good time. I'm hovering around a certain rating. I'm feeling generous. I really am. This is a movie that I definitely would watch again. I really did enjoy it, but it took me a while to get warmed up to it. But aside from the first act, and that's, I mean, the biggest attraction is just that the first act isn't great, but the rest of the movie is really good. And I so much of this movie I enjoyed more than I didn't. So it's only fair that I give Lisa Frankenstein a very solid, I give it a solid 4 out of 5. It's a good 4 out of 5. I'd say it's worth it for a shot in theaters. If you're looking for like a little, it's actually a really good like a date night movie. I'd say if you are a fan of like Corpse Bride or Frankenstein or Beetlejuice, Edward Scissorhands, this movie's probably going to be not as good as some of those, but for the most part right up your alley. Probably not going to be in my top 10 for the year, but I would still recommend it. It was a really good movie, and I'm glad I got to see it a little bit early. Zelda Williams as your first film, good job. So many directors, when they do their first big directorial debut, it can be so hit or miss. I've seen a few reviews online that are very, very mixed, but again, in my opinion, I think that you're doing a great job. Your father, your family, all would be very proud, and I'd love to see what you do next. This was a fun, little dark comedy. Just a little messed up guy, you know. Thank you guys so much for watching. Stay tuned with the next episode of whatever movie I review, and goodbye, travelers.